Hi guys, and welcome back to Scriberly. So today we're going to talk about 4 CV mistakes that people make, really common ones. They're all going to be kind of similar. We're going to do more later on. They're all kind of related to the readability, the aesthetics, and the consumability, I don't even know if these are words, of the CV. So first off, we're going to talk about formatting. Now, formatting is super important. Why? Because someone has to read it and it needs to be consumable. I have seen some absolutely dreadful CVs in my time, as you can probably imagine. And a lot of it is not necessarily to do with the content, but just how that content is presented on the page. You know, what you don't want is to present your CV like an essay. It needs to be really easily digestible. And also people need to be able to go between different parts of your CV, because, you know, what you might think is relevant for the job is not necessarily relevant for the job. So they need to be able to look at your education quick and know exactly where that is on the page. Look at your different job experiences quick and know exactly where that is on the page. So formatting is super, super important. Make sure that there's breakers in between your different sections. So there's a breaker between your experience and your education and your skills and your hobbies, interests, etc., etc. And make sure that, you know, you're using a, you know, usual, normal, professional font like Arial or Calibri or Times New Roman. Make sure that, you know, your typeface isn't too small or isn't too big. Now, the easiest way to do this is just to do it all on Scriberly, where we have all of the templates for you. But if you are doing this at home, or if you are writing your CV yourself, make sure that you are being really mindful that everything is digestible and segmented into different sections so that people can go through the different sections of your CV and go in between them. Again, though, you could just use Scriberly and it's free to download, so why do it yourself? Anyway, the tip number 2, which Scriberly can't necessarily help you with, is the length of your CV. Now, people often ask me, how long should my CV be? Ideally, 1 page. Now, I've worked as a recruiter across so many different industries with people at the most senior level, at the top of organizations. And, you know, if they can reduce their CV down to 1 page, then so can you. Having said this, 2 pages is completely fine. You know, often, especially if you're going for a certain kind of job, you really want to fill out your experience. Maybe you've moved around a little bit, moved industries a little bit, so you have more experience to talk about. So, you know, 2 pages is completely fine. But if it's any more than 2 pages, it's just way too long. No one is going to read through 3, 4, 5 pages of CV. If you hate writing your CV, then imagine going through 100 of them. You know, as I said in a previous video, we had 180 applicants for a job that we advertised for recently. You know, 180 1-page CVs is something, 180 2-page CVs is another thing, but I'm never going to go through 180 3-page CVs. So make sure you're really mindful of the length. Try and keep it concise, try and keep it compact, and limit it to 1 or 2 pages. Tip number 4, we've talked about this before, but declutter your CV. Now, obviously, that's related to the formatting, that's related to the length. But what I mean by this is just make sure that, you know, one of the big mistakes is that people talk about experiences that they have or education that they have that isn't relevant to the job that they're applying for. So, for example, if you've been working for 20 years and you're going for that managerial role, they really don't need to know what grades you got in high school or college. Another example would be, you know, if you're looking to go into law, or maybe you're going into a white-collar industry, they really don't need to know what you did as a barista when you were in university. So really think about the relevance of the experience that you're highlighting. Take out anything that's irrelevant, declutter that CV. Is one of the biggest mistakes that people make, because as we've talked about before, people don't have time to go through all of your CV, so you need to make sure that the stuff that they do look at and they do read is super relevant to what you're looking to achieve. Mistake number 4 is don't be too generalistic. Again, we've talked about this before, having multiple CVs, having multiple options. But as I understand that, you might want to have a kind of generalist CV if you're applying for hundreds of different roles, but try and separate out the maybe 5 to 10 to 20 roles that you're super interested in and tailor your CV to those individual roles. If your CV is too generalistic, it seems like you've not necessarily put any thought into the job that you're applying for, which is, by the way, completely fine. We have all applied for jobs. We've all gotten jobs where we've just fired off the CV in a whim, and it's often numbers are really important, and we've talked about that before, that you want to cast the net wide. So I understand that it's kind of a contradictory statement, right, where we want to be casting a wide net. At the same time, we want to not be too generalistic on our CV. The best way around that, as we've talked about multiple times before, is just to create a number of different versions of your CV that are tailored to the different kinds of opportunities that you are applying for. Another really easy way is just by, using Scriberly, which can use AI to optimize your CVs to different roles in seconds. But if you're doing it at home, make sure you have multiple CVs. One of the biggest mistakes that people make is by having a super generalist CV that highlights everything that they've done equally, so it's really unclear to the person reading it exactly what it is that you're looking to do. And that's particularly true if you're not including a cover letter with your CV, and a lot of jobs these days don't include cover letters, although I would always advise including one if you can and if you have the time to do so. And again, you can just use Scriberly and make one in seconds. So as I say, they're the top 4 mistakes. We kind of focused a little bit that I would say that people make with their CVs, especially when we're kind of talking about formatting, about the aesthetics, the appearance, the consumability of the CV. We'll talk a little bit more about the mistakes that people make in terms of the content in future videos. But as I say, like and subscribe, follow, share, anytime, anywhere, Scriberly.